A man sits alone in a pitch-black room. In front of him, maybe a few feet away, there's a single dot of light. It isn't moving. It's pinned to one spot, dead still. Then a voice asks him one question. How far did the light just move? And he has an answer. He's sure of it. About 2 inches, he says, off to the left. The next person swears it was closer to 6. A third watched it drift out and come back. None of them are right. The light never moved, not once. But every single one of them would have bet money they just watched it travel across the dark. This really happened over and over in a psychology lab back in the 1930s, run by a guy named Muzafer Sherif. And the reason it works is almost dumb in how simple it is. Stare at a still point of light in total darkness with nothing around it to measure against, and your eyes start to drift on their own. Your brain feels that little wobble and decides the light must be the thing moving. There's no anchor in the room, so your head quietly builds one out of nothing. That part's a neat eye trick, but it's not the interesting part. The interesting part is what happened when Sharif stopped putting people in there alone and started putting them in together. Because the moment they could hear each other guess, something shifted. One person says 4 inches. The next, who was about to say 1, suddenly hears 4 and lands on 3. Round after round, their answers slide toward each other until the whole group is hovering around the same number. They've agreed, quietly, without ever discussing it, without anyone saying let's all pick 3, they've settled on a shared truth about a thing that never happened. Then it gets weirder. Bring those same people back days later, alone again, and they still give the group's number. The made-up rule followed them home, and in later versions of the experiment, researchers found something stranger still. Swap one person out, slide a brand new one in, someone who wasn't there for any of it, and the newcomer soaks up the group's number anyway, then hands it to the next person who joins. You can quietly replace every original member one by one, and that invented number just keeps getting passed down, generation after generation, like it was carved into the wall. Nobody told them the answer. There wasn't an answer, so they grew one between them and then defended it like it had always been there. Now here's the thing I can't shake about that. You do this every single day. You walk through a world stuffed with rules nobody ever actually taught you, in situations nobody ever sat you down to explain, and you follow them so smoothly you've never once noticed you're doing it. Think about an elevator. You step in and you turn around to face the doors. Why? Nobody handed you the elevator manual. There's no sign. There was no childhood lesson on which direction to point your body in a small metal box. You just face the door like everyone else, and you stand a polite distance from the stranger next to you, and you lower your voice or stop talking entirely, and if your hand brushes theirs, you both apologize like you committed a small crime. None of that is written down anywhere. All of it is iron law. Quick experiment, and actually do this one. Don't just nod along. Next time you're in a crowded elevator, turn around and face everybody else. Just stand there smiling, looking at them. You will not last 3 floors. The pressure to turn back around is almost physical, like the air in the box is pushing on you, and no one will have said a word. That's the rule, alive and well, enforced by absolutely no one. And you feel how many of these rules you're carrying the second you land somewhere they don't apply. First day at a new job, dinner at someone else's family home, a country where you don't speak a word of the language. You walk in and your whole brain lights up like a switchboard, scanning. Do they take their shoes off here? Is that chair someone's chair? Is it rude to start eating or rude to wait until you're told? You're not relaxed and free. You're frantically reverse engineering a rule book from the faces around you because nobody will show you the real one, and going without it for even one evening feels almost unbearable. So where do these rules come from if nobody's writing them? That's the real question, and the answer is stranger than the elevator. Because it turns out humans don't just quietly absorb rules from the air. When there are no rules at all, we build them from scratch, fast. The clearest proof of this happened in Nicaragua not that long ago. For most of the country's history, deaf children grew up isolated, often the only deaf person in their family, with no shared language to speak of. Then around the late 1970s and into the 80s, the country opened schools that brought deaf kids together in real numbers for the first time, hundreds of them, in one place, with no common language between them. Now the adults tried to teach them to lip-read Spanish. That mostly flopped. But on the buses and in the schoolyard and at recess, something nobody planned for started happening. The kids began inventing their own signs. At first it was rough, just gestures, pointing, homemade signs each kid had cobbled together at home. But put a few hundred of them in a yard together every day, and those scraps started to merge. Signs got standardized. Then something extraordinary. The younger children, the ones who showed up later and learned this messy pidgin from the older kids, didn't just copy it, they cleaned it up. They added grammar the older kids never had, consistent rules for word order and for who did what to whom. A real, full structured language grown by children in a generation with no adult handing it down and no template to copy. Linguists got to watch a language being born in real time. That had basically never been documented before. Not in front of scientists, not from the ground up. and the older signers and the younger ones ended up speaking slightly different versions of the same language. The younger one richer and tighter, like each wave of kids quietly upgraded the rules before passing them on. The lesson buried in it is a little unnerving. You can strip away every rule, every word, every structure, leave a room full of humans with nothing, and they will not sit in the silence. They'll fill it. They can't help it. Want a version of this you've walked across with your own feet? Look at any park with grass and a paved path. Sooner or later, there's a worn dirt trail cutting straight across the lawn, ignoring the walkway the planners built. City planners call these desire paths. Nobody organizes them. Nobody votes. Thousands of strangers who never met all decide the official route is dumb, and their feet vote a new one into the ground. That's the pattern once you start seeing it. Drop humans into a blank space with no instructions, and we don't relax into the freedom. You've watched it happen on a smaller scale. The power goes out and a busy intersection loses its traffic lights. For about 4 seconds it's chaos. Then, with nobody in charge and no law to point at, the drivers just invent a system on the spot. A little wave through the windshield. You go. No, you go. A nod. Within a minute there's a working order at that corner that no engineer designed and no rulebook describes, running entirely on eyebrows and good faith. Take the lights away and we don't just keep crashing. We build new lights out of each other. So we get itchy in the silence. We start drawing lines. We invent who goes first, what's polite, where the edge is, what the dot of light is doing. We are, right down to the wiring, machines for manufacturing rules out of empty air. And that's the part that should make you sit up a little. Because if we generate rules automatically, without being told, without even noticing, then a whole lot of the rules running your life right now were never decided by anyone. They weren't handed down by some wise committee that weighed the options. They just drifted into place. The way that number drifted in the dark room, one person nudging the next, until the whole thing felt permanent. The fork goes on the left. Slurping your noodles is disgusting here and a compliment to the chef somewhere else. You stand exactly this far from a stranger and no closer. Nod your head for yes, unless you happen to be in the part of the world where that same nod means no. You wear black to a funeral here and white to a funeral there, and both rooms are quietly certain the other one is doing it wrong. Which of those did anyone actually choose, on purpose, for a reason that holds up, and which ones just got an early guess that happened to stick, and then got defended for 1,000 years by people who never once stopped to ask why the fork goes where it goes? You're enforcing them too, by the way. Right now, when someone stands a touch too close to you, you feel it, that little spike of wrongness. When someone breaks a rule you didn't even know you had, you notice instantly, the same way the elevator pushed back on you. You're not just following the invisible rule book, you're a guard for it. We all are. We hand it to the new kid on the bus and pretend we found it that way. And mostly that's fine. Most of these rules are harmless, and a world where everyone agrees which side of the sidewalk to walk on is a world that runs. The trouble starts on the rules we never noticed were optional, the ones we'll fight over, vote on, end friendships about, completely sure we're standing on solid ground, when really we might just be 3 people in a dark room, each one quietly nudging the next toward a number nobody can prove, which leaves one question worth chewing on, the kind that follows you to the bathroom mirror. If you'd grown up in a different room with different people hearing different early guesses about how far the light moved, you'd be just as certain about a completely different set of rules. You'd defend those just as hard. You'd feel the same wrongness when someone broke them. The conviction would feel exactly the same from the inside. It always does. That's the whole trick of it. The light never moved, but everyone in that room walked out sure they'd seen it travel, and somewhere right now you're doing the exact same thing about 100 different things you've never once thought to question. Not because anyone proved them to you, not because they're written down, just because at some point in some dark room you don't remember being in, somebody made a guess and the rest of us nodded, and the nodding never stopped. The strange part isn't that we follow rules nobody gave us, it's that we'd swear hand on heart that somebody did. If your brain's now quietly auditing every rule you've never questioned, good, that's the one I'll be stuck on for a while too.